is the Rangers Journal Night.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday night's edition of the Rangers Journal. We are 24 hours on for the battering in Brugge'd. We're here to answer any questions you've got, and we're also here to get lots of things off our chest. Tonight, joined by three excellent gentlemen. I couldn't be in better company tonight. I've got Ross, I've got Doug, and I've got Mitch, who's just joined us there a few seconds before we went live. Welcome, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thanks for being with me. Ross, kick off for yourself first. How are you feeling after that battering in Brugge'd last night?
I keep playing in my head over and over the Mick McCarthy meme of "it can't go on like this, can it?" It can. Incredibly disappointed after last night. You didn't think that it could have got any worse, but I think it seems to be something that we've all been expecting to happen has happened, and it's probably going to be the final nail in the coffin for Russell Martin. So yeah, it's been a bit of a disastrous 24 hours, I think.
Absolutely. Doug, how are you finding it after watching that shambles last night?
Yeah, so I kind of feel a little bit better than I did last night. Obviously been wading through the aftermath. I watched a bunch of pods last night just to get a bit of catharsis, and as many have said, I'm just amazed at how quickly and how universally the fan base has all come to the same conclusion. I didn't actually end up tweeting it out, but I was going to put out a tweet this afternoon because to my recollection, I've never actively called for a manager to be removed because I usually try and look on the bright side. And normally I've always found one thing to kind of grip on. Gio was great in Europe. Beale got us to a cup final. Clermont won said cup final that Beale got to, and had that really good start that made it kind of feel like maybe if we gave him enough time. But right now I'm just struggling at all to find one single thing. The joke being, at least we've been consistent 1-1. But yeah, it's a bit of a dour place to be right now.
Absolutely. And Mitch, from yourself, what do you think from that last night? What is the overall well-being feeling for yourself based on what you saw last night?
I'm fuming. I think that's where I'm at. I'm still genuinely fuming, and the boys will tell you it's not like me to just come out there and just say it like that. I think Ali touched on it really nicely at the end of the match. Mm-hmm. No one has an issue with losing to a club like Bruges when you go pound for pound, their squad's probably better than our squad is right now. It's the manner that we've been handled, both home and away. That and the same mistakes, both home and away. Obviously, only this time when we went away from home, it was an absolute pasting that we took. Yeah. And in all honesty, the way that we've played the last few weeks, it's a pasting that's been coming to us. Because you can't play basket case football the way that we play against a team that's got top quality like Bruges and get away with it. Even domestically, we got away with it against St Mirren. We got away with it against Motherwell. But you can't play basket case football the way that we do, where defending seems to be just a word, not actually done. We play in a manner that essentially we have defence and 5 attackers and nothing really in the middle. There's pieces of the jigsaw that aren't working, and it's like it's like somebody who's just. It kind of feels like somebody's just punched the joy out at the start of summer from us last night.
Yeah, absolutely agree, and I think anyone that's watching, and welcome to everyone that is watching and commenting. We really appreciate you joining in tonight. I think anyone that's watching, gents, will probably think the same, and we'll all have similar feelings in terms of what's went on last night and over the last few weeks. And look, we'll get into that as much as we can. Folks, we'll look at your questions, and any questions you've got, we'll put to the guys, and we'll try and get any answers for you as much as possible. Loving the comments that are coming in already. Ross, your fan group started, which is excellent, which is great to see. So we'll get into it, and we'll get into seeing what we think can turn this around. Where do we think we go from here, and what happens next, gents? I think will be something we'll touch on, and then we'll see where tonight takes us and what we can get off our chest. So, welcome to everyone that's joining us. Doug, I'd like to start with yourself if we can. I know you've been working on the match report for yesterday, so we'll bring up the match report and we'll have a wee look. Doug, talk us through what you thought from last night in terms of looking at the match, how we started, because let's be honest, we were positive for I think 2 minutes, and then after that it became all downhill. And my question really to you is, could you see that coming last night in terms of the manner of the defeat and also the scoreline that was there? Was that something realistic we could see happening, do you think, Doug?
Well, in terms of did I see it coming? No. I know a lot of people have said that they were expecting a beating or a hammering at some point. But I genuinely didn't think it was going to be this game. I thought that they would. I didn't think we would win. I thought ultimately we would end up in the Europa League. I did think that's where we would be. And the lowdown, I've predicted 2-2 because I expected them to score goals. So I was hoping that we would, as I say, turn up a bit and try and put a bit of pride in. And I mean, I just couldn't have been more wrong, to be honest. It's a shame. I started out so well. I was getting the predictions all right, and then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse as time has gone on. But I mean, you're quite right. You know, for about 120 seconds, we were good. And I mean, that's kind of a carbon copy of the first leg, really. You know, we started off okay, and then it just went. I'm trying to think of words that are polite. It just went totally off the rails so quickly. The only difference was we held out slightly longer goal-wise. But, I mean, we were talking about it just before, they scored like 3-4 goals in 11 minutes. They just happened to do it at the second half of the first half instead of the first half of the first half. The Aaron's tackle was atrocious. You can see there the ratings by the ratings team there, just on a wash of red. I actually think they decided not to give Ant-Man a rating because he was only on for 16 minutes or so. Yeah. I think even he's lucky to get away with that because in those 16 minutes, it was him that left his runner that puts the cross in for their first goal. So he could have been given one of those red ratings as well. I feel sorry for Jack Butland. As you can see there, he's the one player in green. He's the only player that really, I think, comes out with total forgiveness. Nobody's upset with Jack Butland. He kept it from being double figures. And I think on the whole, the substitutes as well, although they've all been scored relatively low, I think for me personally anyway, I've not really got too many gripes for them. They're coming in at 5-0, 1 man down. And they did what they needed to do in terms of they kept it that way. That being said, Bruges quite obviously took their foot off the pedal. We were saying beforehand, before we went live, that might have had something to do with the fact that the manager of their club is pals with Russell Martin. Maybe he didn't want to embarrass him even more than he already had. He did take off some of their best players. But it was just, I spent so much time, particularly in the first half, screaming about our left-hand side because there was so much space there. You could have filmed a Star Wars movie. It was just, I could not believe how much space was being left there. And they were just time and time again, they're finding that ball out to that left-hand side, getting in, and then often moving it then around to the right and getting balls in. And it was just everything that could go wrong went wrong. From a playing perspective, from a tactical perspective, from an effort perspective, from a heart perspective. It's just, unfortunately, I can't think of a single thing other than I say Jack Butland sort of say. So I can think of one thing that's redemptive, and that's Jack Butland, and that's pretty much it. I don't like being as negative as that, but I sat for a while and thought about what can I say that's a shoot of green. I say Jack Butland's the only one.
Doug, I think nobody could probably argue with anything you've said there. I think you've articulated it very, very well in terms of how the team have performed, and I think the numbers speak for themselves, Doug. And look, Jack Butland, as you say, man of the match, 10 saves. If you look at those saves that he made, there's maybe only one or two that were straightforward. So that shows you how big these saves were in that game. And you're not exaggerating when you say it could and really should have been double figures in that game. So I think you're absolutely spot on in everything you put on and everything you pull together. Ross, if I can just come to yourself next for a couple of things. I want to call it 32 shots on goal for Brugge'd to our 3, 16 on target to our 1. It just showed the dominance they had, the passing accuracy, the possession that's in there as well. Brugge'd really dominated us from start to finish, and I don't think I've really seen a Rangers team being dominated like that before to that extent. Even the first leg, there was no domination like that because we come back into the second half. Is that the main worry for yourself, is how much they dominated even though we were down to 10 men?
No, not really. I actually, like we say, the easy thing to say with it is that this has been coming. But what I think we've gotten away with is other clubs perhaps not being as clinical or as dominant as Club Brugge are in terms of the talent that they have. They're clearly a very good team. They've been playing in the Champions League. I think it was 7 out of the last 8 seasons they've played in group stage Champions League, so they're not a diddy team. They never were, but even against, I think something that's amiss was in the previous games, especially against Panathinaikos. If Panathinaikos' centre forward was clinical, we wouldn't even been at this stage. They created chances as well. It's been a recurring theme under Russell Martin, the amount of shots that we concede. I believe the numbers are around about 160, between 160 and 170 in 8 games, which is, you want to do simple math, it's 20 shots a game. Bearing in mind that 4 of those games have been against Alloa, Dundee, Motherwell, and St Mirren. I know there's more in other games, but it's an average. Even over that, in those games, we're still conceding shots, we're still conceding goals. There's serious concerns on terms of we keep saying the style of play, but there is no style of play, and that's the frustration with the support. Is that they keep talking about pain, and we keep talking about what we're going to experience, and it's going to be difficult and it's going to be transitional, and that's fine. And I think that if we're in this position and we were having, we were being given fruits of evidence of what he's trying to do, then I think there would be a bit more patience to say it's not clicking because he doesn't have the guys in. We're still waiting to move guys on, as the excuse he's been pulling over the last 24 hours. He's saying that there's been an impact of guys who are, that are being there that are affecting the harmony and the love. I mean, I almost actually vomited listening to that, to be brutally honest with you, talking about harmony and love. I don't really care if they're all sitting around the fire singing Kumbaya. I don't really care, because that just what shows is what comes on the park. And I hate to hark back to it, but it's the best evidence we've got. I seen a clip earlier on Twitter, and I can't remember the account they put up, so please forgive me. Was a clip from an old video from the 90s, and I know we love the 90s, but it was McCoist and Gorham talking about fighting and training, and he says in the clip, we used to fight in training every day because we cared and we wanted to win. It wasn't about because it was passion. They were getting into training every day, wanting to be the best, wanting to win, knowing that come the Saturday they were going to show up and do it. The team that drinks together wins together. No, I'm not suggesting that Russell Martin takes them down for a vegan IPA down to Witherspoons or whatever, right? But there's clearly serious issues at the training ground between the training staff, i.e. the head coach, manager, whatever you want to portray him as, and the players.
Yeah.
There's obviously you have to obviously take it with a pinch of salt, but there's obviously rumours and conjecture about falling out with players. People, it's total silly season, and this is the problem. This is the problem I have, is that this has completely collapsed within 8 weeks, and we're already in ridiculous silly season where you've got Nico Raskin's dad turning into a Facebook mum, and having a go at Russell Martin. You've got Hamza Yigaman who's refusing to play. You've got the team been leaked. The team leaked 3 times in 10 games. The team's been leaked. You can't point to me and say after all that you're expecting the players to go out and run their backside off, regardless of them doing it to 10 men, regardless of anything else. There's clearly serious issues, whether it's personality, whether it's something else. I don't know. We don't know. But you cannot tell me that everything's rosy behind the scenes, and you can sit and you can put out rumours and you can get whoever you want to write about that this is the best morale the team's ever been in. Spare me. spare me the bull nonsense. Really, it's an absolute disgrace what we've been watching, and it's actively getting worse as time goes on. It's totally unacceptable. And apologies, I know you've asked me about shots, and I went on a complete rant.
No, that's okay.
But I don't think you can convey enough how bad this has been, to the point that we're potentially looking at Russell Martin being sacked without actually ever winning a league game.
Yeah.
For Rangers.
Yeah.
And we're not even at September yet. We're not even in September. The transfer window's not shut, and we're looking to be one of those clubs. We're turning into Watford, sacking the manager every 20 minutes. Genuinely, it's an absolute humiliation what the club's been allowed to be turned into, because of, again, poor recruitment, poor managerial choices, looking at what does the club actually need to be successful that doesn't involve buzzwords. Spare me, philosophy, harmony. I want a guy that's winning. I want a team that's winning, and we might come on to it later on. We might come on to recruitment and stuff like that. But it's an absolute disgrace what's happened in terms of the game. To go back to it, the amount of shots we're conceding, you can blame the defence for being bad, but when they're making the same routine mistakes over and over, by doing the same thing over and over, that's on the coaching. But it again leads back to, is Russell Martin telling them to do something that they can't do, or do the players not like him enough to do what he's asking them to do? So, apologies for the big tangent, but it does all kind of lead back to the concerns.
Absolutely, Ross. And look, no apologies needed in that. I think everything you've said there is what everyone is thinking at the moment, I think, at this point in time. And I think we're all in that position with it. So, look, it's passion, and you can see the passion that's coming through from you on that one, Ross. Absolutely. Mitch, can I come to yourself just in terms of the lineup from last night? Now, obviously, we've seen that lineup, an hour and 15 minutes before the game. Raskin had been left out. That was the big talking point of it. Danilo again's up front, and there's a lot of questions about Danilo being up there. Was it, and I'm asking this question as best as I can with it, because we've seen the changes that Martin has made, but was it a surprise to see no Raskin yesterday? And did you think that set the tone for how Rangers were going to play without Raskin in there?
I think when you look at the lineup as it is now, so you take the on-the-night emotion out of it, the big thing that screams at you from that lineup is a lack of European experience in that team. Because with the exception of Butland and Suter, because I take Danilo to the side to that, because realistically for the last 2 seasons, he's been battling through injuries and getting himself back fit, and he's missed that huge chunk of football. So again, it's not a personal dig at Danilo, it's more of a current, in the last 18 months experience in Europe. Really the only 2 players on the pitch there that have got even Europa League experience are the keeper and the centre back.
Yeah.
And it's one of the big things that's kind of caught my eye, even in general, the last couple of games, even leading up to the first game at Bruges, was I have no issues with the team being gutted for the inside out, because we all knew it had to be done this summer. Where I think the recruitments went Pete Tong, or not necessarily, because it can still be remedied, so there's still time to remedy this, is I'm all for bringing young, athletic, aggressive, great future talent as well as ready-to-go talent right now, like Gisama and likes of Ant-Man in there. And I do think Asgard will come really, really good. I think the issue is he's probably 2 or 3 games short of full match sharpness. And I think that was quite a stupid call to put Asgard in there, who right now we know that he picked up the injury during pre-season. He missed 3-4 weeks. You can't put a player that's half a step behind the rest of the team in the middle of the park on that. By all means, bring him on with an hour in and say, right, look, we get it. This tie's probably done at this point. And I mean, under normal circumstances, not where we've taken an absolute howler. I think for me, the middle of the park should have been. You could feasibly find space for one of Raskin or Diamande in there, and for me, it should have been Raskin that you found space for in there. Everybody with a pair of working eyes can see that Joe Rothwell is out of form at the minute. he's currently carrying a bit too much timber. You know, he's not looking at peak physical fitness. Is probably the best way I can put it. You know, because obviously I'm dead athletic myself. Like, you know, but right now, anyone with working eyes can see that Joe Rothwell currently goes the same colour as over Ibina Berry after about 30 minutes. So for me, the most obvious solution would have been take Rothwell out, put Raskin in at the 6, and I probably would have put Diamande in for Asgard personally. And at that point, suddenly then the team has Butland with European experience. It has Suter with European experience. It has Raskin in there. It has Diamande with European experience. And I think, again, we don't know the terms, obviously, of Max Aarons' loan deal, if there's, you know, X amount of guaranteed minutes or anything, or if there's a personal issue. I'm not going to speculate on what's going on in the dressing room because, quite frankly, as we've all noticed over the last 18 months, mainstream media don't particularly know, and everything else is guesswork at the moment. And I think with a game of that level of magnitude, let's call a spade a spade. That was a £40 million game.
Yeah.
That I'm not saying that now. I know I joked a wee bit, obviously, before getting into the game that, you know, based on blind faith and optimism, we could have done the job. To give ourselves the tools to do the job requires having the experience in the team who have been there, they have been in the trenches, and they have had those big European nights. And I think that's something that, when you look at the lineup, that probably most of us would have had versus what came out, they were two entirely different things. I also think I've got a huge degree of sympathy for Magoma on the left-hand side. I think when we went down to 10 yesterday, it was so painfully obvious for that better part of 20-25 minutes. The boys' lack of experience was getting exploited by Bruges, and that's what every good team does. They exploit the weakness. But equally, as a manager, that's also on Russell Martin to turn around and say, I tell you what, Danilo, I'm going to ask you to drop into midfield. But when we're on possession, I want you to go and do striking work. When we're out of possession, which is going to be for the vast majority because we're a man light, I want you in the midfield helping. And then at that point, you maybe ask somebody like Lyle Cameron, and I'm going to use him as a great example because he's the workhorse in there. He's got a pair of legs. He'll run. He'll muck in. He'll help out. You ask him to go and basically help out Magoma and play almost like an extra centre back without being an extra centre back. Because I'm not asking Joe Rothwell to do that because he's towing a caravan and he looks like a Ribena berry after half an hour. So I'm not asking him to go and do that because he's not got that in him right now. Yeah. I'm not asking Gassama to cut back because, again, he should be going forward as the out ball. But, you know, again, there's things in game that could have certainly wouldn't have changed the result, but it could have kept the scoreline a hell of a lot more respectable. And the fact that we never gave Magoma the protection probably cost us 2 or 3 of those goals in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Mitch, as well, the fact that Magoma got a yellow card very early on didn't help the situation at all for the lad. It was a shame in that one. Obviously, Aaron's getting the red cards. If we can touch on that a little bit for a moment, because I think we touched on it last night as well. Aaron's taking the red cards, and I would just be keen to. I'll open this up to all three of you to see what your thoughts are, and if anyone wants to jump in. Should he be taking that boy out at that point, or should he let him go? Does that effectively kill it for us there and then, or was he right to do it? What's your thoughts on that one, folks, in terms of the red card? Ross, if you want to come in first with that one, please, mate.
It's an absolute embarrassment. There's no need for him to do that at that point, I don't think. For a guy who's supposedly played at the level he has, he's played as a Premier League fullback, regardless of the level of team that he's played at there. He shouldn't be pulling him back. That's a guy that didn't want to be there. And you've seen that from the time that Max Aarons arrived, is he could not handle the pressure of playing for Rangers. He's admitted it himself. And I know people come up and say it's a shock and it's not what they expect. And I don't understand why and how it takes, why people don't understand this. I don't understand how many times are people going to have to be told what to expect when they come up here. It's this this serious issue that I had, and I did mention it earlier on about the recruitment, that how many times do people need to be told that come up from England, this is what it's like, this is what you're going to expect, be prepared for it. If you don't want to deal with it, don't come. It's absolutely fine. It's fine. There's not a problem with it. We'll find somebody that can. But again, you've got a guy that's come up thinking Scotland, Rangers are a big team in a Diddy league. It's a farmers league. I'll not need to try. I'll squish it. And then it came to the nitty gritty. Somebody's maybe stuck an elbow in the ribs and he's no up for it. Happened at St Mirren in Sunday, sorry, or Saturday, Sunday, and you know he wasn't up for it. You know, he's a bit. It was kind of who you talking to, and I think it was Brugge'd or the boy Killian, something I can't remember. And he basically was just like, "Nah, I don't want this. I don't want this. I can't be dealing with it." I was like, that was a guy that didn't want to be in the park. It was screaming, you know, send Ross at Parkhead. Just, I don't want to be here. Get me off. If I get myself sent off, then it gives me an excuse. It gives the team an excuse, and I'm done with it. To be honest with you, if I could just interject, and I'll just on something that Mitch put on, something that Mitch said, and it's absolutely spot on about the state of the team, the layout of the team. Russell Martin, every single press conference has used the word energy about 40 times in every single press conference. And you can see there that midfield consists of Tello Asgard, who's not fit, Lyle Cameron, who, let's be honest, if he wasn't signed in January, Thelwell would have probably pulled the plug on the deal and has been probably the standout midfielder. And the twin brother of Joe Rothwell, who looks like he's eaten Joe Rothwell, is that out of shape. It's an absolute disgrace. And that's the midfield that's going to give us energy. Really?
Yeah.
Is that what we're going to get out of this? You've then got, you know, a half-fit Danilo who doesn't know whether he's coming or going. It's an absolute embarrassment. That midfield is a disgrace. But he's not playing Raskin because is he falling out with Raskin? Is he falling out with Diamandi? Now, listen, I've criticised Mo Diamandi more than a lot in here, probably apart from Ross Graham. I'm not a fan. I don't think he should be here. However, you can't tell me that in a game like this where we need to keep control of the ball, having a fit Diamandi isn't a better option than having, you know, Asgard, who's not played or barely played. And then obviously Raskin's legs. Raskin's not the best ball player in the world. We know that. This isn't a game for ball players on that bit of the park. That's a guy that needs to go and support his defence. Raskin's got the legs for that. Again, team selection, these things, it's unacceptable and it's an absolute embarrassment. I just wanted to add that on there. But obviously back to the Aaron thing, that's just a guy that after 5 minutes, we've conceded a goal down his side, and let's not let Oliver Antman away. He didn't track the man, and as soon as he doesn't track the man, you go, we know what's happening here. But doing that side again, it's a guy that just does not want to be here, and if we'd anywhere with all the loan, we'd be getting cancelled just now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, honestly, Doug. I think, sorry, Ross, I think I'm spot on with that. I would cancel the loan if I could. See if there was a clause in that to send them back. I would do it and bring a young boy in, bring somebody who's in the youth that can come in and do a job there and knows what it is all about for Rangers. Because you're right, he just didn't want to be there last night, looking at what he was doing. And Doug, just to wrap up the match report side of things, obviously we were talking about Aaron's there and the sending off, and I think the question is, and this will probably be quite a damning thing in terms of where we think Rangers are at the moment, that sending off, if it doesn't happen, or, and I'll put another alternative in there, if Tav starts in that position, does that game end up in the same position as what it did without that sending off or without Aaron's being there? Do we see a different outcome last night if Tav's in there and you stick with 11 men on the park?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I think we probably still lose. We probably still lose 2-3-0, maybe even 4-0. Because I mean, they were proper on top of it last night as well. We have to point that out as well. But I think, you know, we talk a lot about the mentality and the players and their heads going down, and you know, the red card was another point where I think that allowed for that to happen. The red card, you know, they'd gone a goal down, and then quickly after the red card comes, so they clearly just went, oh well, this is over now, because you just didn't see any fight in them, and then obviously they just, you know, the game went on and they completely collapsed. I mean, that's when you want. I mean, we've gone down to 9 men in Europe before and put up a really good performance afterwards to qualify. And that's what you expect to see from your team when that kind of thing happens. And like I said, if we'd gone down to, ignoring the circumstance of the red for a second, if we went down to 10 men, put in that effort and came out with a 3-0, everyone would have went, oh, well, we didn't think we were going to get through anyway, but at least they did what they could after the red card, because that's what most of the time you're able to say in a situation like that. But I mean, touching on what Mitch was talking about in experience, the two centre backs are possibly the most experienced European players in that team. Suter's obviously got all the experience he's got with us. Jigga has played in Europe every year but one since 2020, including the Champions League. I forget if it was Champions League proper or just qualifiers. So you'd expect the two of them to have. I know Jigga's obviously still young, but I would have hoped that between the two of them, and I mean, Suter's also the captain for the night, so it's his job as well to be saying, right, lads, we're down to 10. We just need to keep this tight. Wingers, just hang back. Danilo, sorry, you're going to have to just chill on your own. You're not getting the ball tonight. Let's just. I mean, Danilo has played in the Europa League before in the past with Feyenoord. So he's played for big teams in Europe as well. Admittedly, I think he's only played maybe 6 or 7, 10, something like that game, so it's not like he's loads. But there's enough there. I mean, there's enough that he's still mid-20s nearly as well, so he's played for loads of clubs across a bunch of different leagues.
Absolutely.
They should have enough with them to, as I say, just be like, right, we need to just batten down the hatches here. And they did that in the second half, but again, it's hard to really give them too much credit for that because, again, Bruges quite obviously, and even with them having pulled off the gas, they were still getting a bunch of chances. Again, Butland, a number of saves there. So, no, I don't think we do. If they stay, first and foremost, I don't think it happens if they stay to 11. I think they get beat, but not as badly. They probably don't put in quite as bad a performance, maybe. Whether or not, I do think, obviously we know the difficulties Tav has had in recent years with tricky, pacey wingers. So I do think they probably still found some space down that right side. Again, pointing to, obviously, if Aarons doesn't go off, then Ant-Man also doesn't go off. And he was leaving a man. So if you've maybe got Tav on from the start, and he's not getting any help from Ant-Man all the time, then they're probably getting in and about there. So like I say, they probably still get a few goals. But yeah, you'd like to think with the 11 men on the park, and Mitch, I don't mean to undercut Mitch's point because I totally agree with it. If you have Raskin on, I think you have those more experienced players on, then the full 11, I think, do better. And that's what, I mean, there's been guys in the comments that have said it as well. Even Curry thought Tav should have been in that game. And that says it all because, Curry's not Tav's biggest fan. But at the end of the day, love or hate Tav, this is a player of 10 years worth of experience who's played with us in Europe across those years. And not to mention, Russell Martin said, I can't remember if it was in the pre-match or the post-match presser or interviews, he said he was playing his most attacking team. Yet you've got a player on the bench with 142 goals and 153 assists. That doesn't sound like your most attacking team. You've got a midfielder in Raskin, who at the tail end of the last season was knocking in goals and getting headers, contributing from midfield, something we've struggled with. To me, it just doesn't add up. So, again, I'm doing the same as Ross. Once I get started, I can't stop. That kind of anger comes up. But yeah, to answer the question in a single sentence, no, had you not got sent off, it wouldn't have been quite as bad, but we'd still lost, I think.
No, I think that your comments again, it's everything you've said. I don't think anybody would disagree with. And look, it's passion. It's something that we're looking at as a fan base. And I think we covered all the words off from last night: embarrassing, humiliating, all those different type of buzzwords. And I don't think anything I can say will add to that. But I think on you go, Mitch. You want to jump in there?
Sorry, there's a word that hasn't been used to describe that last night, and the word about it, to be completely frank, is disrespectful.
Mhm.
That's what that performance was last night. It was disrespectful, and it's not necessarily that's disrespectful to the players themselves to call themselves professionals after that performance. But it's disrespectful and a square in the heart for most of us, considering the team and the club and the nights that we have had in Europe,
Mhm.
in recent seasons. To get a performance like that thrown in our face by a manager who came in and spoke this, talk the talk, and when it's time to put his big boy pants on and walk the walk, he's, for want of a better expression, he's had an accident in the bed, and it's the word that I genuinely can't shake from it is from start to finish the level of tactical awareness, the level of, pardon the pun that I'm about to use here, but the level of sheer balls in the team and
Yeah.
heart and desire.
Yeah.
Everything about it is completely disrespectful. And whatever Russell Martin wants to say about the reasons for starting Aarons over Tav, I'm sorry, but Tav has had plenty of time on the bench this season, where he's been well rested, well looked after. And that's also something that, on previous pods I've called out for and said, look, he is at an age where he should become the luxury player for us to say,
Yeah.
I tell you what, you don't need to go and play Alloa because it's Alloa. No disrespect to them, but
Mhm.
we should be able to go and stick on, wee Jimmy the Sparky, from the academy,
Yeah.
and be fine against Alloa.
Yeah.
But again, we're having to keep going tapping the tab well to
Mhm.
keep getting us out the mess that others are getting us into. And
Yeah.
I've got no issues with the philosophy manager as such. But when you're trying to take a team from point A of where we were last season to point B, which is fantasy land at the moment, there has to be a point where, as a manager, you take the mirror and you look at it and you say, this is on me because I've tried to take them on this journey at 70 miles an hour rather than taking them on it at 40 miles an hour. Instead of taking it in small transitions and small steps, he's just asked them to go and do a hopscotch to get right to the end of it. And it's, again, disrespectful probably boils down to how I feel the start of this season's went. It's been disrespectful to us to watch and disrespectful to pretty much all of us concerned.
Yeah. I'm glad you put that in there, Mitch, because it's a really good comment you make. It is disrespectful, and especially to those fans who made that journey last night over there and had to watch that live. It was absolutely incredible. And we said it off air before we came on. Once you lose those European away fans, there's no going back at that point. And just on that, I would like to just maybe change the topic up slightly a little bit. And I'm going to ask you a question, gents. And the question really is as straightforward as how do we turn this around, right? That is the next part of this. But at the same time, there's a question that Gordon put in about 20 minutes ago. So apologies, Gordon, we'll only get into it just now. The question Gordon put in was, if we beat them at the weekend, where does that put Martin, guys? So if I can ask you this, and Ross, I'll come to yourself first on this. If I can ask you, one, how do we turn this around? But also, if you can, take into consideration the question from Gordon, which is, if we do beat them at the weekend, where does that put Martin? Does the both tie together, or do we need to do two separate things here in order to turn this around? What's your thoughts?
I think that in terms of beating them, you want to talk about fantasy land. I think beating Celtic, as bad as they've been at the moment, is total fantasy. More in terms of Celtic's problems are not on the park, and I know that sounds really silly, bearing in mind they've just lost to a team from Kazakhstan on penalties, but that's a freak result. Celtic know that when it comes to playing us at the moment, they know that we're a total disaster on the park. Their issues have been because of the lack of recruitment, but they still have a squad that's capable of competing at this level, the Scottish Premiership. We don't have a team that's capable of playing well against anybody because we can't string three passes together. And the Celtic team at the moment are better than us. That's not a controversial statement to say. And they have players that they can create chances. We've got a team at the moment. How many chances have we created over the last, 4 games? Daniel, how many chances can you think of have we made over the last, genuinely, against St Mirren, we had the goal. and the Lyle Cameron chance in the first half, and then we had a couple of kind of springs about the box. But when it's not out of Russell Martin's football, it's more out of panic football. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think we'll be, if we beat Celtic, by God, it's some sort of Christmas miracle, and God knows who we've sacrificed. I know they like to talk about sacrificing people to get a result in Europe. God knows who who's getting buried to get a result on Sunday. But I mean, Russell Martin is already gone. I think Russell Martin's a dead man walking. And if the board or whoever makes that decision, I'm of the belief they're just waiting, because he's already onto plums. So he's already taken the brunt of the Bruges result. He'll probably have to take the brunt of getting beat off Celtic. If that, bear in mind, it's all hypothetical, but I just think get it over with. We then go into the international break. You've then got 2 weeks to essentially let that fury die down, get another man in, and take it from there. But we've been back. We've been at this stage before. You know what I mean? The recurring meme that you see on social media, it's so true. Of we start the season poorly, the manager gets sacked, blah blah blah, and the cycle just starts again. We can't keep sacking managers. This is the thing. Russell Martin was going to be given time, because you can't keep sacking managers. And I agree with the statement. However, keeping the wrong man is not a reason to not sack him.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Sorry, I've not worded that right. But not sacking him is not the reason to keep him if he's the wrong man. If that makes sense. And he's the wrong man. They need to own up to the mistake, admit they've made the mistake, and say, we're really sorry, we've got this wrong. We're going to try and fix it. We've got 2 weeks after the international break. We're going to go and we're going to try and get our man in. Who that is, God knows. Good thing I don't get paid to make that decision, to be honest with you. I don't know. It goes back to your initial point: is how do we fix it? The first thing is you get rid of the problem, and at the moment, what we perceive to be the problem is Russell Martin. However, I think there's probably two sides. There's always two sides to every story, and I don't think for a minute that the players, because the players have, they should get away scot-free, because probably not for the first time players have threw managers under the bus. There's guys within that team, within the senior leadership, if you want to call it that, have thrown managers under the bus. We talk about Tavernier. Tavernier's been a great servant to Rangers, right? Probably arguably the best pound for pound signing we've ever made. You can make that debate to the cows come home. Many managers he had, he's been involved in parts of it. And I know I'm not trying to turn this into Tav bashing, right? But if you look at him as part of the senior leadership, so in 5 or 6 years, there's been Gerrard, Gio, Michael Beale, Philip Clement, and now Russell Martin. 5 managers in 6 seasons. You can't tell me. How can we forget Barry? I'm all talking about permanent, but Barry as well. I mean, Barry was never getting the job, but you can't always side with the player. If the same thing keeps happening, but you change the manager, maybe the manager's not always the problem. And I think that was, and I do think that's the case with some of the senior players. I think I'm of the belief that maybe Raskin spat the dummy. Maybe at the same time, maybe Russell Martin's been told to go in and tell them a few home truths, and they've not liked it, and they fell out. And it's like I say, it's probably clash of personalities. There's more. There's not just one thing that's led to this. I don't think it's went as catastrophically bad as it has, just because Russell Martin's went, "Yous have been rotten, and we're going to change it," or some of you guys shouldn't be here. Which, by the way, we've been screaming for by the end of the season. The end of last season. Myself personally, I remember saying you could make an argument that every single player is for sale. You can make an argument that every single player should be out the door. But then if Russell Martin comes in, and I'm not trying to defend him because I still think he should have been sacked yesterday. He shouldn't even get the plane home. But if he's went in there and told them, you don't have a future here, you can't then be surprised if the players don't want to play for him. But he's now taking the brunt for making that decision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's a great point.
It's just turned into a total, kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that it's totally snowballed, and it's got completely out of control to the point that we're now at a stage where you're looking for them. I think genuinely at this point, the whole thing needs to be ripped out. Again, Thelwell probably he's had one big decision to make so far, and he's made a rip-roaring backside of it. Patrick Stewart, he's been in the job for, I don't know how long he's been in the job for, maybe 8 or 9 months. And he's not endeared himself with decisions that he's made against his support. He's also running Rangers day to day. You see the state of Rangers day to day. He's got a lot to answer for. Their first big decision together was hiring the manager. They were given autonomy by the board to do it. They were told that it's not going to be like the Parks and Bennett where they're hanging about all day, drinking coffee in the tea room kind of thing. That they're given autonomy to run Rangers. This is the first big decision they've been given, and they've, this is a PG show, so I can't say what I want to say. They really have made an absolute pig's ear of it. Yeah. So are they? But this is the thing: is that if Russell Martin is sacked, which he should be, should they be allowed to make the same decision again, having told us, 8 weeks ago that Russell Martin was the outstanding candidate?
Yeah,
and he provides everything that the current people that run Rangers are looking for. If that's what they're looking for, we are in for a hell of a time if this is what they're thinking a Rangers team should look like.
Yeah, and look, I think, Ross, you're spot on. Should they be making that decision after something happens? I agree with you. I don't think they should be. And the question that, as you're saying, says it pushes them even further back if we're having to change the background of it. Doug, I'm going to come on to yourself just to follow on from what we're talking about there. For yourself, look, if Martin gets to Sunday and we win on Sunday, close that gap that's opened up at the moment. Yes, it makes things look a little bit rosier again. But from there, in your opinion, does he get the time to continue with the players that he's brought in? Or do we look for another manager to try and take on the players that he's brought in and maybe get one or two just before the window closes to move forward? What do you think is the right approach following that match on Sunday? Because it doesn't look as if he's going anywhere between now and Sunday. So where do you think we should go from Sunday? And do you think we'll be able to get a tune out of these players regardless of whether it's him or someone else?
Yes, I think you can get a tune out of the players because I do think there are decent players in and amongst it. I don't think we're getting the best out of them right now. I think some of them in particular are being stifled. I mean, as I say, I'm with everyone else. I kind of feel like Martin, it's just not going to happen. So he should have been gone this morning. By de facto, he should be gone after Sunday regardless. But I do think he'll get given the time by the board. I do think they will be given pause for thought because they're going to get it in the neck from the fans that are all around them. Because that's the other thing that they will quickly come to realize is that once the fans have become unanimous against the manager, there's no more hate to be given to him because they've made their decision about that. If he's still in the job, the hate then moves up a level because they've not sacked him. So they will very quickly find that the ire will be turned towards them. And for many fans, it already has. I've seen loads of fans already saying that they should go for having made the decision. I personally usually fall on the side of, well, they've made a mistake. They should get the opportunity to fix that mistake. And they can still save themselves. As much as a lot of fans don't like them right now, they could still save themselves by coming out. I mean, they could have done it better by having done it today, but by coming out and sacking Russell and then going, look, we're sorry, we have made a mistake here. Clearly, we're going to have to try and fix this. About a third of fans would still be like, no, we're done with you guys. You need to go. There'd be the third that aren't at that point yet that would stay where they are. And then there'd be the third in the middle who we're on a knife edge. We can go either way. So there's all that. Touching on the points, Ross, a couple of things what Ross said, because I kind of totally agree and totally disagree at the same time on some of them. I'm going to preface my next part by saying I am biased because I love James Tavernier. I think he's a great player, great servant, all the superlatives. So I'll put that right up front to begin with. One of the problems I have with the argument about the senior leadership team and the power that they do or do not wield, Tavernier has been here for a decade. The team has changed 2, 3, 4, 5 times completely in the time that he's been here. So we're either saying that he wields such awesome and awe-inspiring power that he can continue to be the absolute, and yes, he is club captain, but nonetheless is still able to wage such a huge amount of power, regardless of all these changes. Or it cannot be that. It cannot be that. That cannot be as big of an issue as is made of it. I do believe there was a period. There will have been a period that he will have been very powerful, because that time where like Goldson and that were about, and they had that group, and we were doing well as well. Which, you know, there's nothing better for that kind of thing than doing well. But I mean, that leadership team has been totally removed apart from Tavernier, and you know, you've now got a whole new group of people. From all I know, and from all I've heard over the years, Tavernier is a commensurate professional and is meant to be good with players and good with people coming in and things like that. So from now, I'm seeing all these stories that you know, that there's been arguments, that there's bust ups and various other things, and I can't help but think, well, we've been in a similar situation to this with the last few managers. They've taken longer to get there, but we've ultimately kind of got to this position. And I've not heard the same level of stories to do with disharmony and the harmony's been knocked, and we haven't heard that, not to this degree.
Yeah,
under those previous regimes, there's been maybe little things here or there, but there's always going to be little things. If you're losing and your manager's about to get on the brink of a sacking, of course you're not going to have a totally harmonious group in that scenario, as you would in any workplace that's not going well. But this seems to be a little bit of a level above. And so to me, that's down to, well, like Ross said, has Martin come in and said, this is a new thing, we've got new owners, new everything, I'm the new guy, this is the new way of it, everything else is gone. He's not delivered that message properly, or he's not delivered it well enough. If all these people are apparently gone, there are only 3 players in that first team squad that have been there for 3 years or more, and that is John Suter, who's been here for just over 3 years, King and Tavernier. So it's not as if there's any kind of. I'm still seeing tweets about like, oh, drain the swamp, get rid of the old guard. There is no old guard. Tavernier is it basically, and Leon King. And I don't think I'm pretty sure he's not like running rule over anything. But maybe he is. Who knows? He's got the name for it. He's got the name for it. So
I mean, maybe running the rule over the sausage rules.
Well, there is no old guard anymore. So. To me, as I say, it just seems like if he is coming in, because he had the opportunity, nobody would have been more popular than Russell Martin. Nothing could have brought him more on side, having started as a negative, than if he'd walked in on day one and said, I'm removing Tavernier as captain. Because practically even me, who, you know, as I say, biased fully on the table, I wouldn't have 100% said that's the wrong. Well, in fact, I actually totally wouldn't have said it was the wrong decision, because I do agree with the idea of fresh impetus. Tavernier's been here for a long time. He is connected to all that baggage. So I would even have been saying, obviously, I'm disappointed. Love to have great servant, but I would have also said, but I don't think it's a wrong decision necessarily to make, because we need all that. He could have come in and done that, but he didn't. Not only that, they agreed that he was going to stay. So presumably, initially, Russell Martin was on board. So has something changed? And so again, if something's changed, then it's there's something going on there. But I've forgotten what the original question was.
It's okay. I think Doug, to your point, though, your point is really valid around everything, because if you look at it, and I pick on one thing you said, I don't think we've seen this level of commotion come out from the changing room with any other manager this quickly. And I think that's the worry for me. He's lost the dressing room. I think that's clear. I think it's very clear. You see, as Ross pointed out earlier on, the stuff that Raskin's dad's come out with on tonight online. You don't do that. That doesn't happen anywhere, really. And for them to come out and start doing, something seriously wrong in there. And I think, Mitch, I would like to come on to you for this part of it, right? And this is really just a case of, right, if we are saying
called in the bomb squad, I'm ready.
Absolutely. If we're saying Martin's not the guy from Sunday, now I agree with everything's been said. He shouldn't even be here right now. He shouldn't even got on the plane last night. He should have been sacked straight after that game. And I think the worry is Thelwell and Stewart, if they have spoken to him after the game and give them reassurance, that puts it to a whole new manner of worry. If he gets to Sunday, regardless of what happens on Sunday, who do you feel is the person to take Rangers forwards from where we're at? And I would like to see from the comments for anyone if they've got names they would like to put in, but who do you see would be the next Rangers manager to take us forwards and hopefully try and salvage this season?
I'm going to answer your question with a profile of a manager, as
Okay.
opposed to, I've got a name that fits my profile, but that's because I've also got an ulterior motive and an agenda. Shock. But I think my profile has not changed from when we first went looking for a manager. What I think, on one hand, I understand what the 49ers have done, where they've went, we are new, fresh and exciting into Ibrox, and we want to give you somebody young, shiny, exciting. We didn't quite realise it was Ronan Keating was going to be the soundtrack to a disaster season of Ibrox as a roller coaster at this point. But for me, the manager that should have come in, it did not have to be sexy to start with. The name didn't have to be stellar, box office, beautiful, ex-Premier League or whatever. For me, the profile should have been a manager who is 45 to about 52, 53, had experience of managing at a top level, but also experience in managing maybe a team that is used to selling their better players most summers, and where he's used to getting a team whipped into shape, getting them going from being squad mates to being teammates, because there's two very, very big differences there. I used to play rugby at a pretty good level, and I've been in dressing rooms where it has been squad mates and ones that have been teammates. The teammates ones will always go further together because everybody's pulling the same horse. I think for me, that experience and just that little bit, being a little bit older and being around the block a bit more in terms of management, I think that's something that this project this summer needed. It didn't, given the average shelf life for most managers is between 2 and 3 years at a club, it didn't have to be Mr. Next 10 years. It had to be pardon the expression there, and Cilla Black's about to pop out from behind the couch, but it wasn't Mr. Right we were looking for, it was Mr. Right Now we were looking for. And I think that's where a manager like Marco Rose was a great example to use. He managed a successful Dortmund team. He's seen some of the better assets. Some are in, some are out, getting moved on to the next level clubs, above where Dortmund were. Albeit he did see obviously quite a good bit of reinvestment in that player transfer, and he would have to probably readjust his peg, for the transfer fees we'll get versus what Dortmund were getting. But he has a catalogue of success there. He's won trophies across in Germany. The manner in which he left Dortmund, I'm not going to lie, must have left a bit of a taste in his mouth. But that's also an experienced manager with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, ready to stick two fingers up to his former employers and say, I have what it takes to be a manager at the top level. And if you have, right now this summer was a chance for somebody to come in and mould something. Not every signing, I've said it in previous pods, not every signing had to be sexy and special. Some signings were going to just be functional signings, and they were signings for the next 18 months ahead or 2 years ahead. And I think this is where I'm really, really peeved. I nearly used the wording that was going to get us cancelled there. I think where I'm peeved is when you looked at what likes of Kevin Thelwell's done when he was at Everton, for example. The experienced players that he brought in for next to no money other than wages. You had Dwight McNeil came in, you had Ashley Young came in, and it was an aging Ashley Young, good 2 seasons past his best, but they were experienced Premier League campaigners who were going to keep them out the mess of going down, because we all know at that point Everton's situation was dire. He went out and he found players like Onana, to bring into Everton. Onana, was getting floated around as a 50, 60 million pound player just a few weeks ago. So he knows how to shop in other markets. And I think this is what's I think this is what's left the taste. And again, there is still time for some of this to be rectified. Because I
Yeah.
go back to that experience pool. Ashley Young and Dwight McNeil were free agent signings for Everton when they went in. There will be a pool of talent, and I don't like to use the words bringing in free agents because I can see Ross is ready to grow a vein right up the middle of his forehead and start looking like the wee guy for Star Trek. But there will be a portion of free agents come the end of the window that will be one top quality, and they will go for stupid money elsewhere. And that's fine. That's not
Yeah.
the area we want. We want the core of players underneath that. For right now, they are 28 to 32, 33-year-old. We maybe need a year or two out of them just to get us through this phase one after life after takeover, and they're there to be stability players. To say, look, the standards in the team can't drop, win rates have to go up. There's still 2 domestic cups to play for. There's a chance to at least not make a complete arse of it in the league, and there's a chance here as well to still go pretty decent, across the Europa League as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, look, everything you've said again, Mitch, is spot on. And look, I think Marco Rose was a name that we'd seen linked before Martin, and I think people, if that was the guy that came in, I think people would have said, fair enough, yeah, let's go for it and back him, but wasn't to be, and unfortunately landed where we're at. Just some of the comments we've got in, some of the names that are coming up, which one I've heard quite a few times is Kevin Thompson, whether it's been Kevin Thompson as the manager or whether it's been Kevin Thompson as part of the coaching staff. That for me is another great shout there. Another one, we're hearing Neil McCann back in with it again. Stephen Davis, Dodsey, Gregsey. Some Neil saying we don't think Fergie would come back in given the current situation and possibly what happened at the end of the season there. I'm loving the other one from Neil, and it's an out. It's one that's out there. Gareth Southgate. That's another fantastic name. That again, he's maybe not the most popular one, but it's somebody who could maybe do something different.
I think he's probably too rich, to be honest, for us. Like,
probably doesn't want to. Yeah,
he was on what, about £5-6 million a year as England manager, something like that.
Yeah.
There's only one league that he's getting paid that on, unless he fancies like hot weather all year round. But he's too pasty for that.
Absolutely. The other couple of names we're hearing: Muscat, Gerrard, potentially Kevin Thompson. So I think lots of names that are going out there at the moment. Gents, I would just be keen get a name from both yourself, Ross, and Doug. Ross, start with yourself. What name would you like to see if the situation that happens with Martin and he was to be relieved of his duties? Who would you bring in? Ross, that one's for you, mate.
I mean, I've long advocated for Muscat Mania. I have long been the person that I think he's the guy for us. And I understand the trepidation behind it of him being, a clone, if you want to call it a clone of Ange and working under Postecoglou, and that's totally fine, by the way, if you believe that. But he's got an idea of football that involves stick the ball in the net more times than the opponent does. And let's be honest, that's what you want. We can't score a goal to save ourselves now. And you want to talk about mentality. You won't find a man who's taken more criticism in his career than Kevin Muscat did. A lot of it was self-inflicted. I'm not trying to say that, but he made a career out of trying to break people's legs. And that was, and he was a disgusting footballer. But what he has done is he's taken the positive attributes of his career, the tenacity, the passion, the positive aggression, and put it into his football teams. And I understand it's a totally different ballgame managing in Japan or in Australia or in China. But at the same time, football's still the same game. It's still about the same ideas. It's the aim of the game is always the same, and it's to win. You're telling me that Kevin Muscat couldn't come over here and be a success? I think you could be. He's wanted the job. He's advocated for the job for years. Yeah. Now, if he did, to be fair, at this point, if it had any sense, he would tell us to stick it. Yeah. Because we've already knocked him back several times. Yeah. But I've been an advocate for him for years, and I'm still. If I was in charge, he'd have been on the first plane out of Shanghai 8 weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug, what's your thoughts? Potential new manager? Any of the names that the gents have said, or have you got an outsider that you think could come into this?
I mean, I was a long a fan of Knutson from Brugge'd. I think he's done a great job there. He's taken them to new heights, deep into obviously Europe League football as well. I felt like we'd missed the boat on him because he was starting to get linked to Premiership clubs. He was linked with Brighton, I think it was.
Yeah.
He turned down Ajax. The stumbling block with him though is, I think, apparently I've read that the reason him and Ajax couldn't come to an agreement was because he's got a deal at Bodo that he gets a cut of player sales, and I think he was looking for a similar thing at Ajax, and so I did bring that up in the chat at one point, and it was a pretty divisive point as well as to if we would want to have an agreement like that. But I do think he's a good manager. So there was him. I also quite liked. I always forget his first name, but Hulman. Is it Casper? I don't know if I'm just.
Hogman.
Yeah, I keep forgetting if I'm thinking. Am I thinking Casper just because he's Danish? But so I quite liked him as well. And Tedesco as well, Dominic Tedesco. I thought would have been a good shout. But to be honest, I mean, I'm not so bothered about who it is. I just think whoever it is needs to have an element of practicality to them and an element of pragmatism, because that's the big thing I think that's been missing from the managers that we've had, is that they've been a little bit too connected to either a style or a philosophy or a formation or whatever it might be, or they've just, I think Gio, maybe just fell short ultimately in trying to figure out Scotland. But that's the big thing, because the problem is, over the last decade, or even slightly longer than that, the popular thing has been to be what's the word I'm looking for? A philosophy manager, because Pep set the trend, and so everyone wants to be like that. That's starting to turn now, partly because people are figuring out how to play against those types of teams. So we're starting to see new styles of play. PSG, who have been brilliant lately, are much more dynamic and much more direct. So hopefully we'll start to see those more pragmatic managers come in. But to me, that's the big thing. I don't really care who it is. It just needs to be someone who can go, right, look at what have I got in my team and how can I maximize their effect with what I have. Maybe I want to play like X, Y, and Z in 12 months' time, 24 months' time, but right now, these are who I have, and this is how I'll get the best out of that group as I work my way towards that. Not, this is how I'm going to play come hell or high water, and it'll work eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I know we're over in time in terms of what we are normally, and I know it's been a lot of conversations. I just wanted, before we wrap up, if he's good for a few more minutes, just to touch on a couple more things that have come out today, if we can. Bojan Miovski seems to be a done deal, seems to be on his way, whether it's for medical or not. We're not quite sure where it's at, but he seems to be coming in. A couple of other names that have come out. Youssef Chermiti, I think is how you say it, from Everton, is a potential loan. And then a gentleman that we've heard this evening, it's just come out that blocks the right, Derek Cornelius, is a centre-back from Marseille. So there looks to be some traffic happening over...
Mate, he's no English.
Exactly, I know. Few names there. Does any of them excite you much at that point, or do you think those are just names that they're trying to appease fans with, do you think, for just now?
As always, when it's came to transfers, and I've said this the last 3 windows, we'll know what we know when we need to know. I will say, I like the sound of Big Cornelius for Marseille. He's a big, strong, composed unit, and he's vocal. He's probably, if you were a teammate next to him, put it this way, your backside would be dropping, if you'd made a mistake next to him, because he will rip you a new one. And he'll let you know. And I'll tell you one thing though, if you're playing beside him, you'll not make the same mistake twice. And I think he also offers that level of composure on the ball as well, where he's quite good at dealing with the ball in tight angles. He can get the team out of a mess that the team have got themselves into. In terms of Miovski, again, I think he falls into that functional sign. Solid, not sexy, knows the league, can come in, can do a job, and he shouldn't need long to hit the ground running either. Yeah,
absolutely. Doug and Ross, just coming back to you, gents, I think the only positive we can probably take from this week is Europa League. Again, we're back in our spiritual home in terms of where we've been over the last few seasons. Ross, starting with yourself first, and I'll come on to Doug on that. Is the Europa League a distraction for us at the moment in terms of we want to win the league, we want to get back to winning leagues again, or is this where we're going to be for the foreseeable, do you think, in terms of this is our level?
I mean, it's been our level for the last few years, so I think that being in it's nothing new. The sad thing about it is that we're clearly not at the level of the Champions League, as evidenced by the last 24 hours. But even on top of that, having seen the teams that Club Brugge drew today, I'm a little bit relieved, because if we thought the morale would have been bad after losing 6-0 last night, I think we could have been getting a few double-figure scuddings if we were going with a Russell Martin team into playing. I think they drew Barcelona, they drew Bayern Munich, they drew Arsenal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ironically, they drew Kaira Almaty. although to be fair, they'd probably stick about 4 or 5 passes as well at this stage. So no, the thing is Europe's been the constant moneymaker for us. We've needed Europe more than Europe's needed us, I think, because we've been using Europe as the selling point for players. We've been using it as a way to generate funds, because we've not been winning the title, so we've not been given access to the Champions League, so we've needed to do well in Europe. It's not a coincidence that we've managed to make, we've spent a lot of money, admittedly not very well, but we have spent money over the years because we've had extended runs in Europe. You know, we were quarterfinalists last year. We've been in the final. We've been in, you know, I think the year, obviously we reached the final, then we got to the Champions League and got that money. Then the following year we got to the last 16. And then the following year, obviously last year we made the quarterfinals, only losing, you know, to Bilbao in dubious circumstances. So we need Europe financially in terms of, you know, I know we're not at the same mercy of some of the English clubs under FFP, but we play in Europe, so we're under, you know, the stringent, you know, the laws of FFP. So we need it, to be honest with you. And that being said, I think obviously what we've seen of the player trading and the long vaunted player trading is that this is probably the first year where we probably don't need Europe to be as important, because as it stands, once that Hamza Egeman deal's confirmed, we're actually in profit for this window.
Yep.
Despite the fact that we've signed 11 players. I think that might change once Miovski's signed, if he signs, which I'm admittedly excited about. I like Miovski. However, I do have a serious issue about why are we spending £2.5 million on a centre forward when we don't make any chances.
Yeah.
And we've got a serious issue at the defence, and still got a serious issue in midfield. However, we all like signing shiny number 9s with decent goal scoring records and a fancy name. So I'm okay with that. But to go back to your question, I don't think Europe's as important this year, but we still need, you know, those nights to give us something, because the league is looking already like it could be an absolute write-off. So we need something. The season could be, you know, our season could be over by the time the clocks go forward. So we need something. And if it's going to be the Europa League, then it's going to be the Europa League, and we'll deal with it. And we'll have good nights, because we have had good nights, even when things have been bad. Things have been disastrous. Bearing in mind, you think about, you know, when Philippe Clement get sacked, we'd just been beat off St Mirren at home, and it was a disaster. We then went to Fenerbahce, one of the toughest places in Europe, and scudded them, and it gave us that belief again. And we go, oh, brilliant! So you never know. This year we might be, you know, we might be in the relegation spot in Scotland, but we'll go to Lyon and scud them in their own patch. So
I'm loving that relegation spot, but scudding Lyon. Absolutely loving it. That's got to be the quotes of the night. Doug, just really quickly from yourself, looking at the Europa League draw tomorrow, I believe Rangers will be in pot 1, and I know we'll have the news show tomorrow at the same time as the draw, and hopefully we'll be able to get some reaction on that as well. What's your thoughts, Doug? Europa League, anything outstanding on that in terms of call-outs? Anything you think would be a concern for us there? Is it better that we're a pot 1 team rather than being a lower pot team in this new format? What's your thoughts overall on the Europa League, Doug?
Yeah, good place to be. It suits our level, I think. And, you know, with a good record over the last few years now, we can, under normal circumstances, expect to do well, get far. And I don't think it's an unrealistic goal to be aiming to try and win at some point. we've got to the final twice in a decade. And as I say, not that far off it. You get a year when you get a really good draw. There's no reason we can't go there. We are pot one. We should have our prop full-on draw for tomorrow, live on the news show as well. I'll just very quickly let people see while we're talking. That's the group. That's the set of teams that we could potentially get in that draw, as confirmed by tonight's results. And we're the third highest ranked team in this competition. As I was saying that to us when we were just before we went on air. And if this was any other year, I'd be going, we should really be going for this. If we're in theory the third best team there, then we should be trying to get as far as humanly possible. And one of the things, again, that's just really sucking the joy out of things for me now is that I should be sitting there being really excited about it, but I'm sitting here going, I would be really excited about it, but I don't even know if we'll do anything in the Europa League under our current management. And so that's a bit disappointing. But yeah, as I say, I think it's the place for us. If anything, Scotland's had a horrendous time of it in the last 2 weeks in Europe. I believe Hibs went out tonight. I think I saw that in the comments. Aberdeen, I think, went. I don't know if they're out or did they just drop down to the Conference League. I'm not 100% sure, but sure. I mean, either which way, we've not been doing great. But the one saving grace, I suppose, is with both us and them in the Europa League, there's hopefully more chance we get more wins and contribute to the coefficient. Although I think that's probably scunnered now. I'll very quickly say to William, yes, we were in a final like a couple of years ago. We were 2 games away from a final the other year. We could totally do it. Just needs a good draw. But yeah, so that I'll leave it there. I know we want to get finished, so I'll say yes, happy to be in Europa League, and I just hope that we'll get rid of the manager so we can make a good fist of it.
Absolutely. And I think just to touch on that, like I know the guys here have been doing a great job with the transfer videos they've been playing all week with some of the recommendations we've got. So that just falls on from the comments we were making earlier. Again, just to anyone who's watching tonight and has been watching over the last few days, please like and subscribe. It will help the channel massively if you can do so. And it's been great comments tonight, guys. I think some of the comments that have come in has been brilliant, and some of the information the guys are saying around potential new management has been great. We are just about to wrap up. Before we do that, I just want to put a couple of things, and I'll come to yourself in a wee second, Mitch. I'm going to get a prediction from you, if you don't mind, on this one. Looking ahead to Sunday, gents, Mitch, we'll start with yourself first of all, and anything else you want to add in. What's your prediction for Sunday, mate?
That we'll all be watching for behind the back of the couch. I genuinely can't even bring myself to give you a positive answer to that. I honestly can't. I'm going to take, based on thoughts, prayers, and nothing but optimism, 1-0 to us. And again, that is based on nothing but blind faith and optimism. While I've got you for a second, everyone make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and also keep your eyes peeled, because we have got some of our scouting stars videos coming up for the player recommendations that we think will do well. So keep your eyes out there and turn the notifications on, because that'll do you nice on your journey home from work.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mitch. Ross, quick prediction from yourself for Sunday, please, mate.
We seem to be doing 1 each in the league all season, so I'll just say we're going to go 1 each, and we're just going to finish 1 each every game. The whole season we'll finish with 38 points, 1 each, and get relegated. Unbeaten relegation, invincible relegation.
Absolutely. Doug, what about yourself?
I'll say we improve by 100%, and we draw 2-2.
That's a good shout. Well, I'm going to go with a different one. I'm going to say this is the type of games the Rangers players seem to get up for. I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Rangers to try and give that bit of a positive spin. But as Mitch said, I will be absolutely hiding behind my seat in the Broomlin as well. So if anyone sees someone lying behind a seat, then you know why. It's me just hiding. I'm not drunk, I promise, on Sunday. Gents, look, I think we could cover a whole manner of topics tonight, and we've covered a lot, and it's been really great discussions. Obviously, to everyone who's been watching and putting the comments in, massive thank you to everyone for coming in. It is greatly appreciated. What I would say here is that we've got a lot coming up over the next couple of days. As I say, with the new show tomorrow, which will hopefully cover off the draw at the same time, as long as UEFA don't take too long with it. We'll have the pre and post match on Sunday, and hopefully we'll have some good things to talk about after the game on Sunday as well. But gents, I just want to say thanks for your input tonight. You've been absolutely fantastic as always. It was great conversations. Ross, thank you. It's brilliant, very passionate as always, and everything you come across with. Doug, your help for tonight and bringing up all the comments and everything has been excellent. I really appreciate it. And Mitch, look, I love some of the things you're putting in here. It's always a pleasure. It really is with yourself, mate, as well. But listen, guys, thank you for tonight, and just remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night.